The Pittsburgh Steelers look like they should get back Derrick Harmon, but will that be enough to fix their problems in the run defense? I'll talk about that with Nick Farabaugh, as well as what are the Steelers doing to try to fix their issues in the run defense. Well, let's talk about their cornerback trio. Is this the cornerback trio they should have wanted all along? And what to make of how they're using their tight ends, particularly Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth, all here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter with Nick Farabaugh. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. A reminder: this show is with the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. This show is also brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back on this show. You know him from PennLive.com. Nick, the run defense didn't kill the Steelers, but it wasn't, great to see that the Ravens became the second straight team to run for over 200 yards against them. Still getting the job done. And I've said this before too. Like, I felt like even though that they got 217 yards in the ground, the fact that they limited Derrick Henry to just 94 on 25 carries was big. I pointed out when I looked up all 7 games that he's played against the Steelers, when he's under 100 yards, they win. He's over 100 yards, they lose. Just don't let him break out the game. But this Mike Tomlin indicated that the Steelers could get Derrick Harmon back. It's not definite, but they could get him back this week. They'll have the light on for him and let participation be their guide and all that. But I still wonder, what are other things they could do to help the run defense right now?
It's kind of tough because, to be quite honest with you, I just don't think the interior defensive line has the dudes right now to fully hold up. Keanu Benton is like super boomer bust. Cam's really good. But outside of that, YA's also kind of pretty boomer bust. He's sometimes, especially at nose, when he's a 4-eye. Like, let's play YA 4-eye, not a nose tackle. But, guys like Otomowo, Martin Rhodes, and Logan Lee, just have not been very good, to be quite honest with you. So Harmon would be big. They tried some things in this game. They tried some run blitzes. They sent some slot corner help at times, like Echols would come down and be a force player. I thought Alex Highsmith was just unbelievable in this game, to be quite honest with you. TJ did a great job slanting on the backside. In the first quarter, I think he chased down Henry at least 3 times off the backside. So they did some nice things there. I guess the one thing they can do is maybe try to go more single high. They did that a good bit in this game, though, because they knew they were going to have, 5 guys on the line. They really sold out to stop Henry. They didn't really even pay attention to Lamar until Lamar started pulling it in the second half and taking some of the read option stuff. And so there's not a ton you can do, I feel like, when you have the interior defensive line kind of just ailing with injuries and struggling as much as they have, outside of sending some of maybe more run blitzes from the second level. But they even tried that. Peppers, I think, came off the edge a few times, and on Keaton Mitchell's run, he overran it, actually, and that helped spring him. So there's some things they can do, but I really do just kind of think they need to get a little bit healthier up front, and Derrick Harmon is just such a huge piece for that.
He really is. When you look at what he brings to the table, the force that he brings, Mike Tomlin. Was it you that asked him that question about Derrick Harmon in the first rounder? I forget who asked because it was behind me. I couldn't see it, but someone asked him about Derrick Harmon. He was like, "That guy's a first rounder for a reason," and certainly you see it when he's out there. But to your point about the plan and the plan to sell out to stop the run, Joey Porter talked about that on Monday when we got to talk to him in the locker room. I want y'all to listen to how he talks about the plan and what all went into it to balance both taking that away and what Lamar Jackson wanted to do. And then I want to also dive into something that Tomlin said when I asked him about what they kind of allow against the Ravens. But first, let's listen to Joey Porter from Monday.
We went into the plan to create that balance, having to commit so much to stop the run, but knowing that Lamar can hurt you with his arm.
I mean, really, we just give it up to the game plan from TA and Coach Tomlin. We wanted a 5-man front really to just stop the rush, and we really leaned on that plan and wanted to make Lamar be Lamar and, have that little MVP where he likes to stretch plays and make stuff happen so we could capitalize on turnovers, and that's what we did, really.
The Ravens still got 200 yards on the ground, but you guys mostly kind of mitigated that with the way that you were able to win in other areas. What do you guys have to do to clean up the run defense and, but also not giving up the other parts of your game that you are playing well in?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know it's not perfect. That's why we're about to watch this tape right now. I really don't know the answer to that for the game because I really ain't really watched all of it, but I feel like we're going to come with a good outcome and a good learning lesson from this to just continue to play good defense.
So, Nick, I mean, to his point there, I think that it was a solid plan, a solid idea. I think that there's, and there were some questions on my part because I was like, we talked all season long about they needed 2 high safeties. When they go 1 high safety, it has not been a good look. But against the Ravens, with the matchups that they get because their lack of talent overall at wide receiver, that I thought they could do this. You and I talked about this last week, and they came out and did it. And I think it really helped them in this game. And again, even though it didn't shut down the Ravens' run, it kept it in check, and it never let them break the game open.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, one thing that is kind of notable, and I don't like eliminating plays, but 56 yards came on 1 play, right? And
yes,
that is something I did think on a down-to-down basis, the Steelers were a little bit better than the raw yardage would tell you. So, I mean, the Ravens still did have a 42% success rate on the ground, which is pretty good, but it's not even nearly as much as Buffalo had. Like, I thought last week against Buffalo was a butt whooping. I thought this one was, there were more back and forths. I thought the real interesting thing about it, actually, when you look at the splits of when the Ravens ran the ball really well, it was 2nd and 3rd down. The Steelers whooped them and actually smashed them on 1st down. They were not good running the football on 1st down in this game at all. It was on 2nd and 3rd downs where really the Ravens actually kind of made up for it. I thought that was interesting to a degree. But I like their game plan because everyone knows they weren't going to admit it during the week because they weren't going to give the man bulletin board material. We all can watch the games. Lamar Jackson is not 100% Lamar Jackson right now. And that changes everything. It changes the math in the run game. It changes his ability to make all the throws and extend plays. And I just think we saw a more watered-down version of Lamar. I mean, even when he ran the ball and pulled it, he would slide. He wouldn't make jukes. He didn't have the same dynamic burst he usually has. Like, it just changes the math, and the Steelers took full advantage of it. And I think that's smart of what they did. And so I think you got to give the Steelers credit to that respect. But I do think there just needs to be some better some better kind of execution, especially tackling in space. I think that's been one thing in the last 2 weeks that has kind of fallen flat for me. Cole Holcomb missed the tackle on the big Mitchell run. There were, I think, Patrick Queen missed 4 tackles in this game. He's missed 25 tackles this year. I mean, he really was a warrior in this game and fought through it, but that stood out to me. Jalen Ramsey took a few pretty bad angles, I thought. Peppers and Clark had a few weird angles as well, too. So there's just some minor details that I think are personnel related that they can also fix up, and hopefully they get Harmon back because I do think that's the biggest piece to this, honestly.
Agreed there entirely on the Harmon part, especially. But I also look at this, man, and I wonder, like, is this a team that can continue to find ways to win around that when it's not there? I don't think you can always bank on that. To your point, it didn't work against the Bills, though I'd say the offense also really hurt them against the Bills because in the first half, I thought it was very similar. They were letting James Cook get what he was going to get, but it wasn't crushing them because they were mitigating other circumstances. And then when the offense gave up a defensive score, turned the ball over right after that, then it was just like, well, that sucked. And they kind of had to go back to the drawing board. But listen to Mike Tom when I asked him about how they try to mitigate those situations when they're kind of, in that situation where they know that, hey, that team's going to get their rushing yards. And the fact that this is now the 3rd time that the Steelers have beaten the Ravens where they've outrushed them by more than 100 yards and found a win. So since 2020, here was Mike Tomlin on that.
Mike, I think this is the 3rd time in the last 4 or 5 years that you guys have beaten the Ravens and they've outrushed you by 100 yards or more. What goes into a game plan to mitigate that vast of a difference in the ground game?
They're built different than a lot of teams, and so the nature of our matchups are different. You can almost substitute their rushing yards for passing yards and vice versa. The bottom line is you better win the turnover game. You better be good in the red area. You better make timely situational plays, and that's kind of the formula for playing those guys from our perspective.
So I think that's the thing, is that the Steelers are able to find ways to win matchups and to kind of say, like, hey, you know what? You're going to beat us in this area over here where you're really talented in certain spots. You're not going to break the game open, but sir, you'll win out here. But we're going to do enough in these other areas to make that not matter in the game. And I do think there's good coaching behind that. I think it was similar to what they allowed for Justin Jefferson, who got 100 yards against them in the passing. But they said, hey, Justin Jefferson, we can't stop that guy completely. And if we try to sell out everything to do it, we're going to compromise an entire game plan. But you know what? If we stop these other things here and just make sure he doesn't crush us, we'll be fine. And I think that the Steelers have a history of doing that kind of stuff.
They do. And that's been something this year where they've been able to kind of do that. And it's interesting to me because it feels like this defense is like super volatile sometimes, right? Even when they stop the run, they don't stop the pass. We've seen a few games when they put it together, like Indianapolis, I think, is one of those games where Daniel Jones just got absolutely blitzed. The Steelers front took over that game and they stopped Jonathan Taylor. Like, that's the ideal defense the Steelers are going to have. Second Bengals game, all right, you slow down Chase Brown this time around, and then Joe Flacco gets kind of put in a lot of precarious spots. And so the Steelers can put you in these tough spots. And I think against the Ravens specifically, when Henry really dominated them, he would get explosive runs. And that's, I think, the big thing, because Derrick Henry is just one of the craziest size to speed ratio players I've ever seen, right? I mean, this guy is that big, should not move that fast in the open field. And that's really when he's killed them with the Ravens. Like last year in the playoff game, he got a few really big rips in that game, and that changed the game. And the Ravens really only got a few of those in this one. They got actually more explosives than the Steelers in this one, but they didn't get as many raw field flipping plays. And that, I think, is the key thing. I mean, you talk about a 55-yarder to Metcalf, a 41-yarder to Metcalf in the second half, another big one to Metcalf, nearly a 75-yard touchdown, but a 33-yarder to Austin. Like, those are just game changers. 38-yard touchdown to Jalen Warren on a 3rd and 2. Like, the Steelers won the situational ball game in this game. And I think that's really where you look at it. Mike T can talk about, you can get run over for what they get 217 against them. You can get run over like that, but you stand up in the red zone and, you force them to go 10, 15 play drives and they only get 3 out of that. That's a win for the defense. And that's the formula for the Steelers this entire season. If you look at why they're winning games, I think they're 4th in turnover differential, 7th in red zone offense, and 7th in red zone defense. Like, sometimes it's that simple. Like, football is a very complicated sport, Chris, and you and I talk X's and O's, and we break down so much on tape, and sometimes it just comes down to those 3 simple metrics. That plus the explosive play ratio, that oftentimes predicts who's going to win these football games. And the Steelers, when they have beaten the Ravens, have done a really good job winning those 4 areas.
I mean, listen, the Ravens came in as the most explosive offense, and they limited that to keep them in check. And I thought that was a really good part the thing on their part. But I think part of what also is happening here and what happened in this game and what might need to happen against the Dolphins, because I want to get your thoughts on this team coming up, because they're another good running football team coming to town. The commitment that they threw into stopping the Ravens meant more guys in the box and less guys that could help in coverage. And to me, that shows trust that the corners that they have now could get the job done. And I thought they did. I gave really strong grades to James Pierre, Brandin Echols. I gave a less strong grade to Joey, but still a good grade because I think he did contribute well. For those who missed it, I gave him a neutral grade live during the show, but I revised it and gave him a star in the Post Gazette when I finalized my grades. But I want to talk about these cornerbacks more and get Nick's thoughts, because we'll also hear from Tomlin, who addressed all 3 of the cornerbacks at one point during his Tuesday press conference. All that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Mint Mobile. You know, there's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple makes the switch. Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same coverage for a lower price. Setup takes only a few minutes. You can bring your own phone and your number without any issues. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Shop Mint unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plans required $15 months per month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan, term only. Over 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for details. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Nick, it feels like it wasn't that long ago where I was pestering Mike Tomlin about why he was suggesting that Darius Slay could go back in over James Pierre, and he was like, pedigree, and I was like, what goes into the coaching decisions to, like, how do you decide when to put in the hot guy versus the pedigree guy? And he says thoughtfully. Well, now he's singing the praises of James Pierre, and to be clear, that week he started James Pierre, so I think that was a ruse that he was throwing our way. But he had a lot to say about all three of the cornerbacks that play predominantly for the Steelers now, and that's Joey Porter Jr., Brandin Echols, and James Pierre. I want to run through the clips of what he said, and I want to get your thoughts on this trio right now. But here was Mike Tomlin. He'll be going through talking about the corners here.
From a defensive perspective, I thought our third down play, particularly at the early stages of the game, sent the message and quelled the environment and allowed us to find our footing and play. Brandin Echols, I thought, was central to that. He broke up a pass in the red zone early in the game, made him settle for 3 on the first possession. He had a sack on the next third down. On the subsequent drive, he had a third down coverage play, I think, on the next down. Largely, we did what we needed to do on third down in the first half of the game, and I thought it really set the stage for game on, if you will.
James Pierre is one of the league leaders in yards allowed since he's been in the starting lineup. Can you explain how a guy goes from on the couch at the beginning of last season to 6 years into his career, somehow one of the best cornerbacks in the league?
Man, it's him. Ask any of his teammates. He has unwavering belief in himself. He's an unbelievable professional. He's tough-minded. He's physically tough. He's willing to do anything and everything. He's earned everything that he's gotten in this business. As I mentioned in this setting before, he was an undrafted college free agent in the COVID year. And so, man, the tough road is not something that's new to him. I just think that he's played it up mentally, and I just think it's an asset to him and us.
Mike, is there something to appreciate about Joey's, battling back from 2 penalties that he had early in the game, and then, helps make a breakup unlikely at the end of the game, and keeping that sort of resilience in important moments?
Joey's always trying to make plays, and he certainly, being a Pittsburgh kid, understands the nature of Steelers Ravens. He always wants to be a Raven killer. He's made some plays against those guys in the past. He had a big interception against Odell Beckham as a rookie. He tackled Lamar, I think, on a 2-point conversion a year ago. I think that's just how he's wired.
So, Nick, lots of praise across the board. And listen, the corners played great. I gave both Echols and Pierre 3 stars. I gave Joey 1 star, with the penalties. But we've now seen Joey Porter really put together what I think is a very good season, a season that kind of this was a contract year for Joey. He played like it. I think that he's earned a future contract with the Steelers. But I I feel like they need to offer an extension to James Pierre because he's playing pretty good, man. And if him and Brandin Echols can play like this for another year or two with Joey, is this the trio that they've been waiting for all along?
Do you know how old James Pierre is?
What, 29?
He's 29. Believe it or not. And I'm like not going to be on the train of saying pay a 30-year-old cornerback after last offseason. But I could get it. He's not going to break the bank. He's played really well, man. I mean, it's not a fluke. It's not. Like, we have enough of a large sample size now. This dude, how many times do you see a guy at age 29 in year 6 break out? It's just so rare. I mean, it's a real breakout though, and he was really good in training camp. So like, it makes me believe like this is a full-on transformation. So what Brandin Echols and James Pierre have done, I mean, I don't want to say they've saved the season, but like in a lot of ways they have. The Darius Slay signing, total bust. Jalen Ramsey has had his role completely flipped upside down from what we thought it was going to be to a full-time free safety. And these two guys come in and just ball out. Honestly, I mean, Brandin Echols is a guy that you kind of look at body-wise because he's a little bulkier in the lower half than your usual slot corner. Yeah. And he's going man-to-man with Zay Flowers. He's going man-to-man against, he had that one bad game against Ladd McConkey. And outside of that, this guy's been money ever since. Porter, I mean, I get it. He's not always a consistent tackler. He has some lapses in zone coverage, and the penalties are going to be a thing. But he hasn't had many egregious penalties this year. The illegal contact was the first one he's had in a really long time. He's done a great job actually mitigating that. Have you ever seen a DPI for 3 yards? I don't ever remember seeing a DPI that short.
That's pretty wild.
And not only that, it was a bad call.
Don't get me started.
So I think Joey's been really good, just in terms of man coverage. And that's like the hardest skill to find in a corner. It's hard to find really good sticky man coverage corners. And Joey has done it. Echols has done it. Pierre has done it. And I feel better about the depth they have now than I did, because I think if one of those guys got hurt, like for example, Pierre has a calf injury, if that for some reason lingered and he couldn't play, I actually think Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm super comfortable 1 through 4. And having Asante Samuel Jr. as your 4, like, yeah, man, sign me up every day of the week. I think he's a starting level player that, they could easily pluck in there if one of these guys gets hurt. So I just think the floor has risen on the defense, which I think is really important, because at some points in the middle of the year where this thing was just off the rails, everything was going bad, like that Cincinnati game at Thursday Night Football, when things were just so bad, you're like, how is this even fixable? Are the dudes in the building? Well, turns out they were, and the Steelers have kind of found a configuration here that works for them. And so the floor has just been it has just come up significantly since these two guys have come in. And so that's been, I think, a really big boon to their secondary.
I'm right with you. I think the secondary has figured some things out. I also think that unless they are facing another Jamar Chase, T. Higgins type receiver matchup, and not just one receiver, I mean like 2 bad dudes that are going to be tough, I think this defense might be able to go back to maybe playing some single high if they want to prioritize stopping the run. Now, I'm not saying do it unilaterally. I'm not saying do it all game. And I don't think they should drop back into cover 3 coverages, but I do think that they could trust these guys to live on some islands a little bit more than what they were doing when it was Slay and Ramsey having to be out there. And especially if that's what you're going to do to try to bottle up a team that likes to run the ball, like the Miami Dolphins. I mean, you look at the Dolphins numbers coming into this game, they're 28th in passing yards, but 8th in rushing yards. And that's huge for the Steelers to see, like, okay, you know what, Devon Achane, we're taking that away. We're not letting you get these explosive run plays. We're not letting you take off there. We're gonna try to limit you there. And so we might throw an extra safety in the box. And Kyle Duggar's supposed to be back. That could be really big for the Steelers. And you know what, Jalen Waddle's a problem. But Joey, we trust you to win that. James Pierre, take away everyone else, take away the other guys. Brandin Echols lived there. Jalen, just keep the back ends tied up. And I do think that the Steelers could find a way to limit that with that kind of a plan. Now, you'll run up against problems, I think, when you face teams that have good receivers and can run the ball. And so that's when things will get tricky. But right now, I think there's a way to do it. And especially if they get Derrick Harmon back, they might be able to find a way to get the run defense back on track this week.
I mean, a team with good receivers that can run the ball. Is there a team in the AFC that has that?
That's a good question. I
really, I guess the Patriots maybe are the closest to that.
Yeah.
Because that run game has just transformed so much since the Steelers went up to Foxborough. Because Travion Henderson's now the dude in that room, and they seemingly found it. I guess. I mean, the Bills. The Bills just ran the ball in the Steelers. That team does not have good receivers.
Right.
I think of some of the NFC games the Steelers lost, like Seattle, Chicago.
The Lions
Green Bay.
could be one of those teams.
Right. Like, I'm not sure there's a team that the Steelers profile to face that can do both those things. I mean, you think about, the Texans, the Chargers. They have one or the other, right? And both of them have horrific offensive lines. So, like, there's just things there. I'm just not sure that they're going to run into one of those teams. I mean, the Jags maybe can do it. I think that might be a team that can do it. But even still, it's not perfect. Like, so this Dolphins matchup is interesting because I actually think Achan's like a nightmare matchup for them in terms of just a running back.
I think it's a big threat that they got to be aware of.
And the one thing that I thought was really interesting, this was a crazy stat I read earlier today. So under Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel there, previously to this win against the Jets last week, the Dolphins were 0-7 in games where it was 40 degrees or colder. Then they obviously went to New York in a 37-degree game and won. And I think the big reason they're able to do it now is just hand it off to Achan. Just hand it off to Ollie Gordon. And you don't have to give Tua the ball, right? And that's the big difference between early season Miami and now Miami's. They're running the ball. 4 straight games with 160 more yards on the ground. And I think that's significant. So the Steelers' just game plan in this game, it's not even hard. Slow down Achan and make Tua beat you. We've seen what happens this year when teams force Tua to beat you. I'm just saying. Hasn't ended well for Miami, has it? So, yeah, Achan's a really tough matchup just with his explosiveness, his speed. Just because I don't think the Steelers have a ton of third-level speed. Like, if he gets past the linebackers, he might be gone.
Yeah, right. Which is why it's going to be up to them to maintain gap integrity this week. That's a big note. And why I think it might behoove the Steelers to say, let's throw an extra safety up in there, make sure we have another body to make sure those gaps are sound.
The other interesting thing about it, though, is, you got to be kind of cognizant of where you align because the most of the explosives they hit are on the perimeter, which is how the Bills hit the Steelers, which means I'm talking to Joey, Pierre, and Echols and saying, hey, guys, you got to be on your P's and Q's today because Achan's tough to tackle. And not only that, Achan will get the ball in space and receiving situations. He'll get escort swing screens and slip screens. And Achan's such a hard matchup for the Steelers. Honestly, like they face better pure running backs like JT and others there. But oh my gosh, I just his burst and explosiveness is really hard to defend. So I'm interested to see how they do that. But I don't hate your idea. They just got to make sure, Jalen Waddle then doesn't get loose on some things just because I mean, honestly, in terms of just like pure speed, have they faced a faster receiver this year? I'm not sure. So,
yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
maybe Jamar can really run. So
Jamar can run, but point being, they face talented guys. They need to trust. I think they need to limit him and force them to win. If they can take away Achan and the run game and just keep Waddle from killing you with big plays, I think you have the recipe for what you want to do on defense. But I want to switch back to offense because I want to talk to you about tight end. Darnell Washington's in the concussion protocol. We don't know what his situation will be, but the Steelers still just aren't using Pat Freiermuth. And I want to talk about what that might mean for the future, not just for this season, but moving forward. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you the show is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips for a turnover. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Right now, the Steelers are 3.5-point home favorites over the Dolphins on Monday night with a money line of -190. Be sure to keep your eyes on it because that number will move a lot. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, let's talk about this tight end situation, man, because, and you and I have, it's not something we haven't discussed, but it's still been baffling to me just how Pat Freiermuth just isn't used by this team at all, and I don't get it. It's sometimes it makes me wonder if there's a if there's an agenda here. Like, you look at the targets right now. Do you know where Pat Freiermuth ranks among most targets on the season for the Steelers?
7th.
He's tied for 5th with Jaylen Warren. Number 1 is DK Metcalf. Number 2 is Kenneth Gainwell. 3 is Calvin Austin. 4 is Jonnu Smith. And the tie for next is 35 targets apiece for Warren and Freiermuth. That was not what I had in mind. And what's crazy is with those, he still has the 3rd most receiving yards on the team. He's only behind Calvin Austin by 2 yards. And he has the 2nd most touchdowns with 4, only behind DK Metcalf's 5. So he's productive. But do you think there's an agenda going on here, or is this just a matter of, just bad luck for Freiermuth in just the makeup of how they've schemed things and how the personnel has been deployed?
Somewhat surprised Darnell's not above him, actually, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
But you look at it, is the agenda that Arthur Smith just loves Jonnu Smith? If there's a Jonnu Smith fan club, Arthur Smith is the president. You know what I mean? Like that is really what the agenda is. And so the moment they got Jonnu, the bell should have rang for Pat Freiermuth and said, uh-oh. And then on top of that, Darnell has just morphed into the game changer he is in the run game and has become a better pass catcher. And Darnell is now the tight end 1 snaps wise. And so you look at it and the agenda is, I don't understand it. We've talked about this multiple times before. What does Jonnu Smith do better than Pat Freiermuth? And there's one thing he does better, and it's he catches the ball in space, specifically in the middle of the field in space, and can make things happen. This is how Miami used him last year. Here's the issue. The Steelers do not use Jonnu Smith in any capacity in that respect. They give him jet sweeps. They give him pop passes. They give him now screens. They give him bubbles. Like, they give him different things. So they're not maximizing what Jonnu Smith does well. Muth's a better blocker. He's a better zone beater. He's better against man coverage because Jonnu Smith is going to be given chances against man-to-man this year and is just not separated at all. He's got better hands. Like, I can list it off just time and time again. I don't really understand why Pat Freiermuth doesn't play more. So, if you're going to utilize Pat Freiermuth like this and you're paying him like a top 10 tight end, you're paying 2 tight ends actually to be top 10 tight ends. One of them got to go. They're both under contract next year. You cannot, and Darnell Washington is going to be the lead horse in this race, and that's going to be what it is because he is a special unicorn of a talent. But who's going to be your receiving guy? And if it were up to me, it would be Pat Freiermuth. But if the Steelers don't see that, you're kind of keeping him hostage almost, aren't you? Like, what is the point of keeping him next year if you're not going to, 1, maybe move on from Jonnu Smith, and 2, you're not going to utilize Freiermuth? Because I'm telling you right now, if Jonnu Smith went elsewhere, would he have, a very narrow role that he could do well? Sure. That's what he did in Miami last year. But if Pat Freiermuth left the Steelers, I feel very confident saying he would put up pretty good numbers, and people might be surprised by that.
I agree. I think Pat. Here's the other part about this. Pat Freiermuth. We talked about like George Pickens, and it made sense for them to move on. He just wasn't working out here. There's no issue with Pat Freiermuth, man. Like he's not some problem child. He's a professional. He is a leader. He's beloved by the fans. I mean, just he is a ray of sunshine in the locker room, on the practice field, on the playing field. He is Mr. Positive Energy, buy in on everything, never complains. I really appreciate what Pat Freiermuth brings to the table in so many regards. And I think he's underused. It's not that he's not getting open. Heck, he threw a great combo block to spring Kenneth Gainwell on his touchdown run. I forget who he touched first, but I know he chipped to Roquan Smith and took him out and kept him out of the play. And so when you're blocking like that, and you're a guy that you can make plays, that I just feel like that there's something weird going on here. And I get Darnell Washington getting snaps because you know what, Darnell Washington is a monster, and his help in the run game is tremendous. And you saw the lack of Darnell Washington impact the run game this past week. But man, I have a hard time looking at the way they're using Pat Freiermuth and justifying it. And this goes back to what you said about Arthur Smith earlier with personnel usage. That stuff baffles me. I feel like that, I feel like there's sometimes that Arthur Smith gets ahead of himself by trying to create these personnel packages to be creative and catch people off guard and things. But it's like, buddy, just get your best tight ends in the game.
It's just funny because, personnel usage wise, I mean, even going back to last year when Johnny wasn't here, they would take Muth or Washington off the field for Michael Pruitt. Like, what? Like that was the whole thing. Pruitt, by the way, has not been signed anywhere this year. I mean, the other thing that baffles me is week in and week out, Chris. The top two guys that get design touches are DK and Kenny G. Okay, the Kenny G part also surprising, but I get it. He's a really good player. You would like to see more for Jalen, but it is what it is. Third on the team is Jonnu Smith. Like what? Like, Chris, tell me this and explain this to me. When you go through the Steelers offense, what about the game plan tells you in a week? One of the answers is I need to get early down design touches to Jonnu Smith. What does that bring to the table? Like, I just want to sit in the meeting room and just go through with Arthur Smith the film, and he's like, yeah, we need the Jonnu jet sweep here on 1st and 10, right after Jalen ran a 13-yard run off a zone run concept. Like, just go in the film room and be like, my God, look at that cut Johnny just made to get 2 yards instead of 0. Like, I don't understand, what, like, why it is. And by the way, who has the highest passer rating this year when targeted on the team? 88. Just saying. Sure-handed. He does everything. They don't even use him on choice routes anymore, man. That was the quick button, kind of easy button thing they've always had with Muth. He would be so good on those choice routes out of the slot as that F. They don't even use that very often anymore. I don't get it. Honestly, in terms of baffling things I've seen on this team, Muth's usage is a top 3 thing for me.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I don't fully understand it. But again, just looking at how the Steelers have used it, it makes me wonder if there's something else going on there. It also makes me wonder if they're thinking about moving on from Pat Freiermuth, paying Darnell Washington long term. I see I think it'd be great to have Darnell Washington on a future contract after next season. I think he is that good of a player, and I think that he can be that kind of a guy for the next 4 or 5 years. But I also think that there is a serious weapon that you have in Pat Freiermuth, and I think it would be silly not to use it.
100%. He's the most underutilized person on the offense. He needs to be utilized more, and they just need to highlight the kind of player strengths. One thing, and this is kind of this is more of an Arthur Smith thing. There's a tight end thing, but it ties into the tight end thing. I think sometimes Art does too many like plays over players things. I always think in the weighty moments it should be players over plays. You know what I mean? Like if I am on a third and highly weighty down, I want to look at designing a play for DK. I want to look at designing a play for Jalen Warren. Freiermuth is in that bucket to me just because of how
Yeah.
reliable he is with his hands. He's a
Agreed.
zone killer, and he's really super smart at these choice routes and is able to win. And I do think sometimes Arthur Smith almost like outsmarts himself a little bit. And I like some of the designs Art does. And I thought, some of the things he did against the Ravens, really good stuff. But I also just think there's moments where it's just like, hey, man, we all know who the best players on this offense is. And Pat Freiermuth is the second best pass catcher on this football team. Why isn't he seeing the football more? And why isn't he seeing more plays that are designed for him? It doesn't make much sense to me.
I'm right with you. We'll see if we get more answers on that when we get in the locker room on Thursday. The Steelers are actually off on Wednesday. Because of the Monday Night Football game. They switched up their schedule. They came in Monday to review film. It wasn't a victory Monday. They did a victory Wednesday so that they get a day of rest here so they can recuperate. And then they're back on Thursday. But tomorrow we've got crossover Thursday coming up. So be sure to tune in for that because there'll be lots to talk about with Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people that can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you could follow me on Twitter at Faribaugh.FB. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to check out the stuff at PennLive.com/Steelers and watch the YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz on PennLive.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. My handle is always at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back here tomorrow with crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.